The foreclosure letter arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. At first, I almost threw it away. It looked like every other piece of boring bank mail people ignore until the weekend. Thick envelope, official seal, numbers printed in cold black ink. But then I saw my name, and underneath it, a debt of $560,000. I froze. The letter claimed I was months behind on mortgage payments for a luxury property I had never seen before. A house with a pool, a 4-car garage, marble countertops, default notices, threats of foreclosure, and according to the documents, I was the owner. I sat alone at my kitchen table rereading every line until my coffee went cold beside me. Because I had never bought a house, I could barely afford my apartment. My car was 12 years old. I still budgeted groceries some months. So how was my name attached to a mansion? My hands shook as I called the number printed at the bottom of the notice. The woman on the line sounded kind, calm, professional. After verifying my identity, she paused and said carefully, "Ma'am, according to our records, you personally signed the mortgage documents last July." I felt my stomach drop. "Can you give me the address?" She did, and the moment I heard it, I knew exactly who had done it. My younger sister, Vanessa. Growing up, Vanessa always borrowed things that weren't hers. My clothes, my makeup, my car, even my credit card once, claiming it was an emergency. But this wasn't irresponsible anymore. This was identity theft, real fraud, the kind that destroys lives quietly while everyone else smiles for pictures. I filed a police report that same afternoon. The officer looked at me carefully and asked, "Do you want to press charges?" I stared down at the paperwork for a long moment. Because no one prepares you for the pain of realizing the person who betrayed you shares your childhood memories, your blood, your last name. But eventually, I whispered, "Yes." Not out of revenge, out of survival. Then I waited. I didn't call Vanessa. I didn't post online. I didn't warn anyone. I waited until Sunday dinner. The entire family was there. My mother setting plates on the table like everything in the world was normal. My father laughing at television reruns. And Vanessa sat glowing in a designer dress, talking loudly about real estate investments and manifesting abundance. I remember watching her smile across the table while knowing my entire financial future was burning behind that smile. At one point, she looked at me and winked. That was when I reached into my purse, pulled out the envelope, and slid it across the table. The room went quiet. Vanessa opened it casually at first. Then her expression collapsed. Color drained from her face so fast it scared even me. The police report, the investigation notice, the fraud claim, all of it stamped and official. She looked up slowly. "You called the police?" I held her gaze. "You bought your dream life using my identity." My mother immediately grabbed the papers like she could somehow smooth the truth flat with her hands. "Sweetheart," she whispered nervously, "let's not make this a family issue." I laughed softly, a tired laugh, because somehow families always say, "Don't make this public to the person who got hurt, never the person who caused the damage." My father finally spoke. "You didn't have to involve law enforcement." I looked at him carefully. "You knew?" Silence. That silence answered everything, and somehow that hurt more than the fraud itself, because betrayal from one person feels painful. Betrayal protected by an entire family feels devastating. Vanessa started crying almost immediately. Not quiet tears, loud tears, desperate tears. The kind people use when they're losing control of the story. "I was going to fix it," she kept saying. "I was going to pay it back." But I couldn't stop thinking about the months she spent living inside a house built on my stolen identity while I worked overtime trying to improve my credit score. She had been posting luxury kitchen videos online while I was clipping grocery coupons. And the worst part? Everyone around her had chosen not to ask questions because the fantasy was prettier than the truth. That night, after dinner exploded into arguments and panic. I walked out calmly. For the first time in years, I stopped trying to save everyone else from consequences they created themselves. A few days later, Vanessa's mugshot spread online. No filters, no expensive makeup, no carefully edited captions, just reality. Her influencer partnerships disappeared almost overnight. Her real estate agency dropped her. People who once praised her success suddenly acted shocked by the lies. Funny how quickly admiration disappears once truth enters the room. But honestly, none of that made me happy. Because some victories don't feel exciting. They feel heavy, necessary, like finally removing a splinter buried too deep for too long. The legal process dragged on for weeks. Lawyers, paperwork, statements, bank investigations. Every document felt like another reminder that someone I loved had treated my life like a tool for her convenience. One night, Vanessa called me from a blocked number. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "They're taking the house," she whispered. "Please, just tell them you gave permission." I stayed quiet for a moment before asking one question. "When you signed my name, did you think about me at all?" Silence, then more crying. I hung up, because for once I refused to abandon myself just to protect someone else's comfort. The house went into foreclosure shortly after, and suddenly relatives who never called me before started flooding my phone with advice. "She's still your sister. Family should forgive. Do you really want her life ruined?" But no one asked what this had done to mine. No one asked how terrifying it feels to discover your future has been tied to someone else's lies. That's when I realized something painful. Some families don't want accountability. They want silence. Silence keeps appearances clean. Silence protects the illusion. But healing? Healing requires truth, even uncomfortable truth. Months later, I met my lawyer for the final court hearing. The courtroom felt colder than I expected. Vanessa looked smaller somehow, not glamorous, not confident, just tired. The judge reviewed the fraud charges carefully before asking if I wanted to make a statement. I stood slowly. My voice shook at first, but then it steadied. "She didn't just steal my identity," I said quietly. "She stole my sense of safety. She stole trust. She stole years I'll spend repairing damage I never created." The room stayed silent, and for the first time in my life, I stopped minimizing my own pain just to make other people comfortable. Vanessa eventually accepted a plea agreement. Restitution, probation, mandatory financial monitoring, no jail time. And honestly, that was enough for me, because I never wanted revenge. I wanted peace. There's a difference. After everything ended, my family tried reaching out again. Family dinners, apology invitations, long emotional messages pretending time could erase what happened. But I had changed by then. Not colder, just clearer. I finally understood that forgiveness and access are not the same thing. You can wish someone healing and still choose distance. So instead of rebuilding old relationships out of guilt, I started rebuilding myself. I bought a small townhouse under my real name. Every payment earned honestly. Every signature mine. I filled it with quiet things, plants near the windows, bookshelves, soft music on Sunday mornings. Peace. Real peace. Not the fake peace families create by pretending nothing happened. One evening, while sitting on my balcony watching the sunset spill gold across the city, I realized something important. For years, I thought strength meant enduring betrayal silently. But true strength is finally deciding your life deserves protection too. Today, I still get asked if I regret reporting my sister, and the answer is no, because exposing the truth didn't destroy my family. The lies did that long before I spoke. I simply stopped carrying them alone. My name is Elena Carter, and after everything that happened, I finally learned something no one taught me growing up. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. And you do not owe endless access to people who only love you when your silence benefits them.